chapter 4 is this long section of teaching, for the most part, that is Jesus's parables. Again, the story he's telling to try to illustrate a point to the people who are truly willing to listen to him. And we're halfway through one of them. It was the parable of the farmer who went to go sow or plant seeds. In the last verses we read, we heard the story, and in these verses, Jesus is going to explain the story. So just as a refresher, a farmer went out to spread seeds. Some of the seed fell on a path and immediately was eaten by birds. Other seed fell on rocky soil, and it shriveled up when the sun hit it. Other seed fell among thorns and didn't produce any fruit. And finally, there was seed that fell on good soil that produced 60, 30, or 100 times. So those are the soils. And today, his disciples have asked, what did you mean by that? And Jesus is going to explain. So it starts in verse 13. And it says, Then Jesus said to them, Don't you understand this parable? How then will you understand any parable? The farmer sows the word. Some people are like seed on the path, where the word is sown. And as soon as they hear it, Satan comes and takes away the word that was sown in them. Others, like seed sown on rocky places, hear the word and at once receive it with joy. But since they have no root, they last only a short time. When trouble or persecution comes because of the word, they quickly fall away. Still others, like seeds sown among thorns, hear the word, but the worries of this life and the deceitfulness of wealth and the desires for other things come in and choke the word, making it unfruitful. Others, like seed sown on good soil, hear the word, accept it, and produce a crop. Some 30, some 60, some 100 times what was sown. Now, I hope you were listening because this parable, it's the first big one Jesus tells, and it's all about listening to stories. It's a teaching about how you listen to God's teaching, and if you're a good listener. And so I want to look at it because sometimes I think we look at this and just hear this as, when, sometime in my life when someone shared the gospel to me or shared the gospel with me, did I listen to it and accept it? I don't think that's mainly what Jesus is talking about. He's talking about when the word is shared with you. Anytime you're hearing from the Bible, anytime God is trying to speak to you, anytime you hear a sermon on Sundays, do you listen to it or does something else get in the way? Okay? And so the first seed that falls on the path, it says that they hear the word and it is immediately taken away. And I think that can happen to all of us sometimes. Sometimes, again, you're in the middle of church, you're at FSM, and the person is talking and you're not even listening. You're thinking about what you're going to eat for lunch. You're thinking about the fun thing you're doing that afternoon. You're thinking about a text or something you just received that is distracting you. And as soon as, even like before the word has stopped being shared, it's already gone because you weren't listening. That has happened to me before. And Jesus is saying that be careful because that can happen to you and there's no fruit in your life from the word. And he said others, like seeds sown on rocky places, hear the word and they receive it with joy. But as soon as persecution comes or becomes difficult, they immediately fall away. And again, I think that can happen to us. We're at cell group and we hear something we know, okay, God is calling me to make this change in my life. I'm going to fight this sin, or I'm going to start serving people and loving people in this way. But as soon as it becomes difficult, as soon as temptation comes, or as soon as the people you were trying to serve don't treat you the right way, or as soon as peer pressure tries to get you to act a certain way, or whatever it is, it's over, and you've almost already forgotten about it. There's no real root of conviction that wants to really put into action what Christ has said. And then it says, still others, like seed sown among thorns, hear the word, but the worries of this life and the deceitfulness of wealth and desires for other things come in and choke the word, making it unfruitful. And again, here's something that I think we can all fall into sometimes is, again, maybe I read something in my quiet time during the morning, or I hear something at cell group, but they're just so, how many times is the story of our lives that we're distracted and busy? I think especially in the culture that we're in busy Northwest Arkansas, when there's so many fun things happening and so many activities that it just chokes it out, and there's just no room in our life for Christ to transform us because we don't give him any of our time. We don't really put our thoughts into it. Our thoughts can be consumed by so many other things, and so there's just no fruit in our life. But finally, it says this last person. It says they hear the word and they accept the word, and it produces a crop. That if in our life when we hear what God's wanting us to do, we really listen to it. We don't just listen to it like, oh, that was a neat idea or that's cool advice, but this is the authoritative word coming from the God of the universe who knows you, who loves you, who made you, who understands how you were meant to live. When we hear it that way, and we don't just hear it once, it's like we dwell on it. I mean, think about it. When you're with your close friends or people you really care about, the conversations you have, the moments you have, you remember. You talk about them later. They get stuck in your mind and they start to transform you. And God's saying, I want it to be the same way when you hear from me. It's not just I hear it and then I leave and forget, but you're dwelling on it and you're letting it, in moments when it applies to your life, it comes to mind and it actually shapes your behavior. That when you hear the word like that, it not only produces a little bit in your life, but it can completely transform your heart and your future. It says it produces a crop 30, 60, and some 100 times. It multiplies. It grows exponentially in your life if you are really someone who hears the word and accepts it. And I think that's a huge application point. What is your heart like? Is your heart a heart that really listens and can slow down enough to let God's word penetrate? Or is it kind of like that hard soil that when you hear the word, nothing really happens? And that's why Jesus opens with this. He says, if you can't understand this parable, how will you understand any other parable? The reason he says that is you're not going to be able to understand any parable if you're not really a good listener, if you're not willing to listen and think and dwell and let it shape you.